Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. Today, our guest is Gloetzner of 𝗓𝗏, and he is going to tell us about his mission and his plan to ensure that no one dies alone. We're going to talk about reimagining end-of-life care with our good friend Gloetzner. Let me tell you a little bit about Miles before we get started. Miles is the founder and executive director of 𝗓𝗏, a free, non-medical, person-centered social model hospice home rooted in Catholic values, located in downtown Albuquerque. After an 11-year nursing career at the Reimagining VA Medical Center, Miles followed a deep calling to offer compassionate, dignified care to the dying. Inspired by his faith, family, and firsthand experiences in healthcare, he launched 𝗓𝗏 in 2022 to ensure no one dies alone and to mentor the next generation of healthcare professionals. A husband, a father of 6, and a servant leader, Miles leads with purpose, compassion, and conviction. So that tells you a little bit about our guest. Let's bring him on and welcome to the show, Miles. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming down to the Why Not Leadership office all the way, quite a few miles traveling for you, but I know you live in the East Mountains of Albuquerque. And for those of you that are not familiar with Albuquerque, that is a bit of a drive. And you do that commute every day, Miles, and to get to your office in downtown Albuquerque, and then you have to go about 5 miles south to come to my office today. So thank you for being here.
Oh, it's worth it. So glad to be here. Thanks, Dan.
So Miles, as I was reading your introduction, a lot of things came up. First of all, I want to hear, I think our listeners would benefit from hearing, what made you go into this ministry? What made you decide to leave a steady career, a steady paycheck, and everything that comes with a career at the VA hospital where you were a nurse and you were doing what you love to do, and that is taking care of people, and that stability to decide to become a leader of a nonprofit to help people not die alone. Tell us about how that calling came about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. It's a different type of story, like everybody who's listening to, and yourself, the ways that life happens and the adventures. So, it was an 11-year sojourn over at the VA. They treated me amazingly. I love the VA. I'm a huge fan of it, and I didn't think I was going to leave. I started off in med-surg and patient nursing and really enjoyed it, but found an opportunity that I thought would be my last and dream job, which was outreach, street outreach to homeless veterans, going to street corners, parks, assisting them with their healthcare needs and their housing needs. It was incredible. But after a change of leadership, my position was also changed and became a social work position. So I got kind of grandfathered into primary care nursing at the VA after that, and enjoyed that for a number of years. And that happened to be during the COVID endemic there. After that, over a few years of cruising in that position, a nursing mentor of mine recommended that I consider the position that she was leaving, which was a nursing leadership position in the education department. And I decided to take her up on it and applied for it and got it. And it ended up being a lot different than what I had anticipated. And I wasn't able to fully thrive, and my personality and such just wasn't a great fit. So I took that program as far as I could, and also realized more about myself. I discovered a lot about myself while in it. So it ended up being the greatest blessing. And this idea that I had for a home for the dying got stirred back up when I was in this position, because it caused me to look around at different possible career next steps. And I realized that the VA didn't have anything, that I looked outside of the VA, and I realized there wasn't really a good fit in a regular nursing position outside of the VA. And I just kept looking, and then realized that I was made to do something a little bit different, at least at this point in my life, and that was to start this nonprofit, this home for the dying. Albuquerque, we do have a lot of troubles. Housing is one of those issues, and poverty. And I realized that rather than waiting for the government or a hospital to try to fix the solution of bringing dignity to those in the end of life, that someone else needed to do it. And I was kind of wild enough, adventurous enough to believe it was possible and to make that leap. And that's exactly what I did.
You know, I love that you shared that in that story. You kind of had to say, why not? Right?
Mhm.
Why not me? Why wait for the government to do something about it? That can be a long and laborious process. And you had the skills to get this done. But I know there's a challenge, and then there's something else you brought up in your story. You talked about your not being able to be yourself in that role. And as I look at your why operating system, which we always talk about on the show, um, you have a why of better way. So you're an innovator. You're someone who's always, what you're doing is a better way, right? You found a better way to help people die with dignity.
Mhm.
And one of the things we know about people with the why of better way is they can't help but share. And so you can't just learn that there's a better way for people to die with dignity, but you had to share it with others. And so that you're doing that through Enora. Your how is to make sense of things. So you're a problem solver. The I guess the simple thing is you saw a problem. You saw that there's not enough places where people can die with dignity, and you created a solution. So you solved that problem, and your what is to contribute, to make a difference, to make a positive impact. And you're certainly doing that through Enora. Our family has personally benefited from that, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. I definitely want to share that testimonial. But what was difficult? Tell us, what was it that made you say, you know what, this job isn't a fit? Everything else, I think probably everybody, and I've been there, right? Everybody's looking at you like, are you crazy? That sounds like a great opportunity. Why would you leave that? Tell us how it felt and what drove you to take the action to say, you know what, this isn't a fit. I've got to find something else, something with more meaning that I can do.
That's a powerful question too, and definitely draws me back to that experience. I mentioned that I never thought I would leave the VA. It was really a stable place, and a place with a lot of opportunities for growth. Just such a wonderful experience. And Dan, just to let you know, I'm getting some feedback of myself now, I think from your side. So while I was there, I realized these things about myself, and that in order to thrive and fully live that that why operating system, that better, that I would need to move on. And it wouldn't have been possible unless after making the decision to move forward with starting 𝗓𝗏, that a board of directors formed, and all the right people just came together to make it possible. So that's kind of the long and the short. As people started to come around it and to believe that it was also possible and agree that there was a purpose and a big need for it, then it also gave me the boost to believe that it was possible and to make the leap.
So thank you. You know, you also, you know, I mentioned in the introduction, you're a father of 6. And I happen to know your wife, who's a wonderful, wonderful human being, just like yourself. I know your kids got to do a pilgrimage with Esther and Abel and Tony last year, and see them just be themselves. And so your family is a family of great faith, and I'm sure that played into it. So tell us about how that your faith as a Catholic man informed your decision to begin this venture.
The whole idea and inspiration for it comes from the belief that God made every person and that every human life has value from conception to natural death. If I didn't believe that, then I think things would be a bit different in deciding to make that leap and that step. So having that foundation in the belief of the dignity of every human person and opening that up to considering that people were dying alone in personal settings. In fact, the why that you helped me discover helped me also put into resources that people are still dying alone.
Mm-hmm.
People have better things to think about than whether or not they can afford dignity and compassion in the end of their life. And unfortunately, I think in our easy and fast-moving culture, we're really starting to move towards this idea that rather than take up resources for care, for treatment, we're now leaping into this new era of killing as a solution. And that was just something I felt I had to do something about. And linking this back to faith, God made every person with value, regardless of background, regardless of income, regardless of story, regardless of religion and belief system. And what an amazing thing that I get to enter into people's story and adventure, and at the most vulnerable time of their life, and to journey with them in those final days. I find God in caring for the dying. I really discover him in those moments of being at the bedside and making this home possible for people.
You know, you had only been in operation a few months, Miles, and now we've known each other for a couple of years, but I was really impressed by the work that you did. I had the opportunity to work with you, not just you and discover your YOS, but also your executive team, and take them through a workshop and help them understand themselves better. But in learning more and more about your organization, I knew, because at that time my mother-in-law was going through we knew that end of life was coming for her. And I just knew that when the time came, I wanted her to go to your facility. We had other options and there were other things we could have done. But I will tell you, and for anyone listening, if you're in Albuquerque, and I know you can only house 4 residents at a time. Is that right, Miles?
Actually, only 3.
3 residents.
Very limited, though.
What we know, though, is that they're only there for a short time, so you're constantly rotating. But I can vouch for the care, the compassion of not just you, but everyone who volunteers there, from your chef, who used to be a celebrity chef who cooks amazing meals for all the residents with all the care as if you were on a movie set for some celebrities, to just everyone being so hospitable and it feeling so much like a home. So we shared in that journey with my mother-in-law and with you, and you were there at the end of her life. And I remember we prayed, and it was such a blessing for us to, and we could tell that she was more comfortable. She'd been in a hospital for a long time prior to moving to hospice care, and you could tell she felt comfortable. Family came to visit. You allow visitation at any time. Family can stay overnight. So there's so many things, and I'm sure these things are in common in many hospice facilities. But I think you have a chapel in your facility so people can go and pray. Um, there was so much that you guys did. So I want to thank you for the great experience that our family had as we got to say goodbye to my mother-in-law, all gathered around her bed with prayers and in a peaceful manner, which you helped create. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was powerful, and it's amazing how the people who come to us, all of the different stories and backgrounds, from people who do have family support, regular visits, or family members even staying 24/7 once they come to our home, all the way to people who come to us and don't have any visit and are maybe only with us overnight. Um, yeah, every story is just so powerful, and it's such a gift to be able to enter into that moment, those powerful moments. Um, yeah, in life we have such an emphasis at the beginning with birthdays and celebrating those on an annual basis even. But there's another very important time in our life, and that's our last moment, our death day, you could say. And we do a lot of, like I said, anticipation, doctor visits, whatever towards that first one. But when it comes to the end, a lot of us don't do good preparation, and it can definitely catch families off guard or individuals off guard. So what a service and what a need. And I'm just so humbled that I get to be part of that story and part of that solution.
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is a really cool question. Enoura. Tell us about the name Enoura, because I know that with both our kids going to a holy child, so we're inducted into, and we learn Latin through them, but not a lot of our listeners are familiar with where that word comes from. Can you tell us about where the name came from and the inspiration for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Enora means at the hour, and it is inspired through the rosary. I feel like Mary is the exemplar, the best example of someone who stood by while a loved one was dying and endured it and entered into it. And of course, that was for her son, Jesus Christ, on the cross, standing at the cross and not necessarily doing anything, but just being this compassionate and open presence. So that's the idea of Enora, is we're entering into that same encounter with a holy, sacred human being in this intimate setting of the deathbed. So we're there at their hour of death. It's also, I guess, another inspiration for it is we're entering into this scene of death care at the hour when the healthcare industry is failing to meet the need, when other organizations haven't stepped into it as well. So we're a solution at the hour when it's needed most, and when we're not going to be waiting around, but we can provide this better and amazing service now. And it's at the hour when healthcare workers themselves aren't being cared for by their employers, and nurses in particular, but also physicians and others. They're being worked to the ground, extreme shifts and patient to nurse ratios that aren't great. So nurses aren't able to provide the care that they want to, especially for those who are dying. So everybody's hurting. So we're entering onto this scene as well at the hour when healthcare providers need a new solution and a person-centered solution to a sometimes failing healthcare system.
So You know, man, there were a lot of places where 𝗍𝗏 came in, right? Really fits the situation that it's not just at the hour of our death, which, comes from the Hail Mary, Sancta Maria Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae, et in hora, at the hour of our death, our death, et in hora mortis nostrae. But you took it to another place, right? It's at an hour when healthcare isn't valuing life, especially at the time of death, where it's more convenient to choose. What a lot of countries are doing is using euthanasia and saying, okay, it is more expensive to keep you alive than it is to get rid of you. So we can reduce healthcare costs significantly if we don't take care of folks over 80 with congestive heart failure or diabetes. All those costs that come into play, where if you're strictly a numbers guy, you say, well, that's or a gal, that's a simple decision, right? Let's just get rid of the most expensive patients, and that would be those folks that have chronic illnesses, that are near the end of life, and they're no longer productive. This is a great question, and I want to make sure I would love to get your thoughts on it, because what's the argument? I know the faith argument, but and give us both. Give us the faith argument, because that's important, but also give us the practical argument for us to not say, hey, that person is no longer a contributing member, right? They are not producing anything. They're not even capable of taking care of themselves. They're almost a net negative to society, because they require 24/7 care plus resources. When someone comes to you with that argument, when you hear that argument, what's your response to it, Miles?
That is a powerful question, and one that we need to really start standing up about and presenting to the world. And we don't need to do it with a religious view. People all have the innate desire to be loved and to be cared for, and to know that they are important regardless of what they do, but just for who they are. Everybody deserves that, and everybody hungers for it. So right there, we know the statistics of who are killing themselves through physician-assisted suicide, also called medical aid in dying. The people who are doing it are people that feel that they are a burden to society, who feel that they don't want somebody to do something for them, and who don't want to be a burden on someone else.
Right.
So it's our society that has indoctrinated people to feel that if they aren't doing something important or meaningful, that they're better off dead.
Yeah.
And for such an affluent society to still support this type of belief, it just seems so dehumanizing.
Yeah.
To think that, let's say, someone with a disability has less value because they aren't doing things that someone with less disabilities can do. To think that a child who needs someone to do the shopping for them in order to eat has less value because they can't do it themselves. Or to think that somebody on their deathbed becomes less than human and better off dead because they need someone to help change their brief, or to help feed them, or to be with them. So it's a real kind of stain on our humanity. It's a stain on our culture to have these belief systems that look at people in this way. Another problem with it is we know that suicide is a major problem at all stages of life. From teens, it's something that we've always said is preventable. And now we're saying it's okay under certain circumstances. We're giving these mixed messages that life matters if you want to live, but if you don't want to live, then you can take it. We know that in some areas, mental illness is becoming an eligible diagnosis for euthanasia. So rather than treating people who are sad, rather than treating people who have depression, we're now opening up the door for them to get help to kill themselves rather than to get help to live.
Mm.
There's also this strong movement right now in our culture that's death positive, that's encouraging people to talk about death and dying and bring that to the conversation, bring that to the table, because for so long it's been an untalkable, it's this thing that we're not able to be open and honest or even curious about. So I've seen our culture make a lot of strides in that area, but now again with euthanasia, it cuts off the conversation, because rather than encouraging people to face death and face the end, they can now do uh, the ultimate ignoring of death, which is putting themselves to sleep. And they can even use that as a euphemism for what is happening with euthanasia. They're putting themselves to sleep rather than experiencing this once in a lifetime opportunity of dying. It's something they'll only do once. And for some, it's the best time of their life. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be awful. It's this amazing release, this freedom, these last gifts that are giving, these precious moments that are shared can be the best of any that have ever been shared. And now people can miss out on that because they were told it's their choice, it's their body, they can do it their way, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You can keep it a secret, you can do it your way, your style, and you don't have to worry about death. It can be hard, and your condition might make it really painful. So they kind of scare, and kind of in a similar way of what they do in other things, they don't provide all, and by they, I mean healthcare providers, social
Right.
workers, people who are in the field, they don't give all of the information.
Right.
If somebody just says they're interested in ending their life through euthanasia, that's all they need to hear. And it becomes, oh, we'll support you in it, rather than actually doing proper assessment and really digging into the situation and trying to confront those fears of death, those fears of the loneliness and those anxieties related to the dying process. That with just a little bit more information, and especially with more care, then they would choose something different.
You know, you're touching on so many important topics there, Miles. Um, you know, I was just talking to a fellow parishioner who goes to mass at where I attend daily mass at Fatima, and he was talking about when their grandparent died, and how they kind of just waited for everyone to get there. And once all the family was there, she kind of looked at everybody and kind of gave a thumbs up and said, "Okay," and just fell asleep and was gone. But she had that peace that everyone was there, and like you said, it was a beautiful moment because there was no suffering. There was, you know, she just needed to see that everyone was there. And once the last family member arrived, she was able to look at him and kind of smile and go to sleep. And so that's a you know, that's one of the, I'm sure you've seen that yourself, right? Um, so Miles, as we were having some technical difficulties, or we're talking about your family.
Mhm.
I've had the opportunity to meet all of them, but the ones I know best are you and Savannah, and of course Abel, um, Esther and Tony, because we did the pilgrimage together. Such a great family, such a strong family unit. I know also that you can't do this. You can't go and start a nonprofit and leave your steady job without great support at home. And that radiates from the Gloetzner family. I just see it every time I see you together. You're such a great picture of a united family. What's a secret, for so someone listening, maybe they're not leaving their VA job to start a non-for-profit, but maybe they're in the same shoes as I'm in. You leave a corporate career that's very lucrative and very secure and stable to start something on their own. So that we do have a lot of entrepreneurs as listeners. We do have a lot of faith-driven entrepreneurs who listen to the show. How were you able to, maybe I wasn't even convinced, maybe you were cheered on by, but tell us about how that decision came about with you and Savannah as the heads of the family, making that decision and then moving forward, and then how you brought everyone on board. And I see, that unity continue even as you continue on this venture. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah. Number one is I wouldn't have considered making the leap unless Savannah was on board with it and willing to make that step, because it's definitely a together decision and something that would have great impacts on our relationship and on the family. So, and actually one of the signs of success that things are going okay even now, it's not so much how 𝗓𝗏 is doing, but it's also how Savannah is doing with 𝗓𝗏. And when I hear from her that she still knows that she's number one in my life, and when I see the children connecting and happy when I'm home, then I know that things are okay and that I can continue on. It was a challenge, and it still is, time-wise, because 𝗓𝗏 can be a 24/7 thing for me as we're still building up volunteers and support and training enough people to be at 𝗓𝗏 around the clock. There's definitely times when I'm there literally all the time, maybe sleeping while someone else is doing the care, but I'm there as a resource and a backup in case something comes up that they aren't sure what to deal with. So yeah, none of it would be possible without their prayers, without their belief that this is what God is calling us as a family to take on. And it's come with challenges because I'm not home as much. So Savannah's parenting style definitely kicks into full gear to make up for the lack of parenting that I'm able to do. So that's a real cross and a burden that she's carrying in this process, and that my kids are as well. But yeah, having them behind this is definitely what makes it possible. So for you who are considering making such a step, and you have a family, you have loved ones, married people, definitely make sure you're not doing it just on your own whim, and that it's going to be best for the family in the long run.
That's you bring up something that I talked about on Father's Day. I posted on my social media about redefining winning. We talk about winning as, all the great success coaches talk about winning being accomplishing as much as possible. So even in your field, let's say, what does winning look like? Well, winning would look like, do we have 1,000 𝗓𝗏s all over the United States and thousands more all over the world, and you multiply that model and you reach the highest levels, but at what cost, right? When you're doing it at the cost of your family, at the cost of time. So I believe we can redefine. As you're on the Why Not Leadership Lead Different podcast, I think we can redefine winning. I think winning can be, I think when we look at the end of life, and you see this every day, are you going to regret that promotion that you didn't get, that company you didn't take to $1 million or $1 billion, or do you want to win at that, or do you want to win at being a great father, being a great husband, being a great son, being a great brother? And what are the things that when we get to that final judgment, that we want to share, right? I was a great brother. I helped my brother do this, and I did that at the expense of maybe closing another deal. I was able to be with my kids and do Federation of North American Explorers with them. but maybe I didn't, open up the sixth or seventh or eighth 𝗍𝗏 facility. There's a redefinition. How do you define uh, winning? What comes into your mind when you're, because you are at that place? Um, Imagine yourself, let's say 40 years from now, 40, 50 years from now, and you're on your deathbed. How will you define winning as you're sitting there with your family surrounding you and you're thinking back, okay, these are the things I did well.
First off, thanks for tying in a practical way that if we apply death and dying to our everyday lives, it puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
And if we could all kind of picture ourselves at that moment, like you just described, I think we would make a lot better decisions and winning decisions like you're talking about. First off, leaving that career and taking the chance to start 𝗍𝗏 on a professional level, it is a win that we can care for even one person in those precious moments and to be at the bedside. And it was all worth it for one of them. We don't do this kind of big numbers, big dreaming while we forget the individual people that we're caring for. So one person is worth it all. And thank God we've been able to care for 16 since April 8th on 2024 to now. So it's that right there is definitely an amazing thing and that I would not regret. Winning, even in that sense, though, at the expense of my family life, would not be worth it, because first and foremost, I've got to live my full and greatest identity in that vocation of being husband and of being father. So to succeed at 𝗍𝗏 while the home life is not going well, that would not be a true win. And for anybody doing a startup and having these conversations with your loved one, there does need to be an understanding that there will be sacrifices, and those sacrifices includes time away from family more, especially at the front end of the leap. But knowing that that's not going to last and that that's just a season, and then as soon as possible and at every opportunity, taking those moments with family and making the sacrifices, even at the expense of the organization, are a must.
That is a great perspective. Thank you for sharing it. And I had a guest on that talked about we talked about it just a little while ago. When we think about that final interview, right? That exit interview, as I like to call it, I always think about doing the best you can with what you're given. And I heard a story. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Miles. This dad was talking about he bought a gift for his kids. He bought them a new toy. And, they played with it and they were so excited and they were having so much fun with it. And, one day, a couple of weeks went by and they weren't playing with it. And he's like, "Hey guys, where's the toy that I got you?" And they said, "Well, we lost it. We don't know where it is." He's like, "Well, what do you mean? I gave you this gift. I bought it. I worked hard to give it to you so you could have it and you could enjoy it. And you don't know where it is. You better go find it." And he said, and I was mad because I gave him a gift and 2 weeks later they weren't using it. And so he said they went and they found it, but they had to clean up. They had to go in their room and put things in place. And then he turned the story to, that's what God's doing for us, right? God gave Miles a gift of compassion for other human beings, a gift to be able to be a nurse and learn the skills necessary to care for others. And you're fully using that gift. And he also gave you the gift of leadership, because I see you as a leader, not just in the community, but I see you as a leader with your family. I see you as a leader in your faith community. And so when you're fully utilizing that gift, you get to that exit interview and the question isn't going to be, "Hey, Miles, here's the potential I gave you, and here's what you did." It's more like, here's the gift I gave you, and here's what you did with it. We all want to be above that first line, right? We don't want to say, oh, and there's so many references to it here. That you didn't take your gift and hide it, right? Because it's easy to do. You have a gift for making things better, and you're doing that through 𝗍𝗏𝗧, through the people that you're developing to be the next leaders of the next 𝗍𝗏𝗧, if you expand, if you decide to do more ventures like this across Albuquerque and across other places. So so I wanted to share that with you. What are your thoughts on that final interview? What would be, again, we're getting back to, because I like bringing it because we don't often talk about it as a knight. Their motto, Knights of Columbus, say, memento mori, right? 𝗪𝗵𝘁 𝗵𝗔𝗍 memento mori. Time flies, remember death. So you're constantly reminded of that, but we don't often take that time. But what's it with your gift? What's the goal, Miles? What would be a great outcome for 𝗍𝗏𝗧, for the work that you do, for spreading the ministry, the word about what you're doing for people at end of life?
There's a few thoughts going through my mind. The most recent thought is this, which is a military man who wanted to serve his country and wasn't able to, according to his beliefs, to kill anyone, still entered into military service. They made a movie about him, and his name fails me, but he said this. He said, as he was going onto the battlefield and taking soldiers off and back into safety so they could get medical care after this major battle and still under gunfire, he would take one person at a time, and he just kept this prayer going of one more, let me get one more. And he did that until he saved, I don't know the number and I don't want to underestimate it, but it was quite an incredible number. So that comes to my mind of one more, let me care for one more person, let me care for as many as I can in those last days, those last hours. The other thing that struck me as you asked that question or told that story, really, with the father who gave that gift, is what an amazing work that you're doing, Dan, because the gift that we've been given is inside of us more than it is the things that we do on the outside. By you helping people to discover their why operating system, you're actually opening them up to acknowledge the gift, to find that gift that maybe has been lost in their life or covered up, that maybe they never discovered, and you're helping them discover it so that they can fully live who they are. Without knowing who we are, we can't accept the gift of who we are. And without knowing what that gift is that we have, we can't give it to others. So it all starts with that kind of self-knowledge that you're helping people discover. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the endorsement, and I'll take that anytime, Miles. I appreciate it. But honestly, it's similar to you. You figure something out. I went through a process, right? And I talked about it. I went through a process where I was having all the success that the world says you're supposed to have, right? You're promoted, you're leading a big venture, you have a high dollar job, you're responsible for a lot of people, you're getting to be that leader that you were meant to be with when you have leadership skills, but it felt empty. And I knew there had to be more. And when I looked at the balance of it, where it was missing was I wasn't really home for my family. I wasn't there for the important things, the things that mattered. And so now you prioritize what's important. And I think when you do that, you're able to live a balanced life and achieve even more. So what's required of me, and I think probably for you too, Miles, I don't, because I coach track and cross country. That's 8 weeks a year, two times a year. So 16 out of 52 weeks, I'm out for 3 hours every Monday and Wednesday afternoon. Plus, if it's cross country season, I'm out on Thursday. So we have to be so much more intentional with our time that when we are working, we better be working. And as someone who's neurodivergent with ADHD, it's even harder. But that's where prayer comes in. That's where we ask for the gift of focus during those 45 minutes at a time, that I'm able to focus and get things done. Just like this morning, waiting for you, I had 20 minutes. Now you can use that time and scroll through social media or look up some fun videos that somebody sent you, or you can just do something productive, because you know that the more work you get done in those 20-minute little breaks that you get here and there, the more free you're going to be to do those things you love to do, which is spending time with family, coaching, spending time with friends, and doing all those things. So it has been a journey, and it's so inspiring to see others taking that leap. And I know you're inspiring people, Miles. I know that there are going to be listeners that say, hey, that's a great cause. How can I help? Because you're a not-for-profit. So where can people go if they're interested if you're in Albuquerque, if you're visiting Albuquerque? I know you take visitors all the time. Come by and visit Miles. But where can people find out how to help, and where can they learn more about your mission at 𝗍𝗏𝗏?
Thanks for asking. So you can find us online at www.𝗍𝗶𝗃𝗏𝗏.org. So 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏.org. You could email me, miles@𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏.org. We're also on Facebook under 𝗍𝗏 Home. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, also under 𝗍𝗏 Home. So you can find us in all those places. And I love what you said about inviting people to come and tour the home. If you are just traveling through, by all means, but if you are in the area, even easier. There's no reason not to spend 30 minutes to come and get a quick tour of it. It's quite an impressive home. You know, it's not described as a facility, and when you go there, you'll know what I mean. It really is. It feels like home. The family of one of the guests we just cared for said it felt like it was going into grandma's home, which I just thought was a sweet thing. And for them, it was definitely sweet. So we definitely could use more volunteers. We could always use more donors. So however you're interested in getting involved, you can reach out.
That is fantastic. And please, I recommend, we're going to put this in the show notes. We'll put the website, www.𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏.org. We'll put it in the show notes. So if you're interested, I know there's a donation page. You have fundraisers throughout the year. But honestly, I think experience it. If you're in Albuquerque, go visit. If you're visiting Albuquerque, stop by and see Miles. He's an easy guy to get a hold of. Just call the place and ask for Miles, and somebody will find him. And if not, DM me and I'll get you in touch. But I also know that this is a labor of love, but it needs to be funded, right? And you're doing just tremendous work, Miles. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Is there a question I haven't asked? Is there something you want to make sure we share with our listeners, our viewers, before we finish this interview, Miles?
I would say don't be afraid of dying, and don't be afraid of talking about dying, of having those conversations with families, and of really preparing. And know that you matter. You matter to the very end, to the natural end. And if ever you're in this situation, you feel like your life doesn't matter, just remember you do, you are important. And if you need a home in those last days, we'd be honored that you would consider us instead of medical aid in dying. What a blessing that would be to you, and it would be a blessing to us. You are a blessing. So thank you.
Man, thank you, Miles. This time has flown by. I think I'm going to have you back. I have so many more questions I want to ask of you, but thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. You are definitely leading different. You are definitely doing something that's out of the box, and it's a better way of doing it. So you're living your why, and I really appreciate you sharing your story with our listeners on the Lead Different podcast. Guys, if you're listening and this story resonates with you, let us know in the comments. Make sure you share this with your friends. Make sure you comment. Make sure you follow the channel, and then share it with your friends so that we can get more leaders like Miles' stories out to the world that are also leading different. Miles, what do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much for being here, Miles. It's been a pleasure and a blessing to share your story with our audience, and we look forward to hearing more success stories and more great stories of how many people you've helped. I know we're in the double digits now, so I know you're going to hit 3 digits and maybe 4 digits in the years to come. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure you, like I said, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, and let us know in the comments what you thought of today's interview. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll make sure Miles gets them. And if I can't answer them, I'll make sure he does. So have a great rest of the week, and don't forget to lead different.
Thank you.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.